Oh, Marra's, how's it going? Welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is episode 41, and I'm very, very happy to welcome back everybody's favourite co-host. It is Wills. Say hello, Wills.
Hello, Wills.
you sound like you're ready for this talk about something today, man.
I've only just watched the highlights, so
you spared it right until the last minute. Oh, mate, well, you're looking well anyway. You're looking well. You look like you've had a bit of a shave, clean shaven. So, like, I don't know if that was really that taxing on you, and you just had to do something to maybe just make yourself feel better. Did it have anything to do with the cling shave? Just the poor result? Did it leave you?
When the penalty went in, I was just like, right, it's coming off.
Mate.
It was Halloween, and it was for a fancy dress.
Was it for a fancy dress? What did you do for Halloween?
Nothing really. I went to a party.
I know. What did you dress up as? What did you dress up as?
Nothing.
You just dressed up as a shaved Will. Just a shaved Will.
It was a bit late, and I thought I'll shave and see what I can come up with. And
nothing came out. Nothing came out. Right. Well, mate, I'll tell you what, we'll crack things on with the show. Yeah. And as we always do, start off with a bit of tradition here on the Blue Army podcast. So that means it's time for the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. Right, I'm quite happy with this one. We're staying away from blue jokes. Now. The bit of a bad omen around blue jokes after the audio died when me and you tried them last week.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't very good, man. I was thinking, blue jokes, Blue Army podcast, but nah, we're going to stay away from blue jokes. Just a nice clean one for you. Here we go, Wills. Question for you, mate. How does the moon cut its hair?
Oh, I don't know. How does the moon cut its hair?
Eclipses it. I can see you cracking up. Let something out. Bloody hell. I thought Liam Denwood was hard to crack last week. Jesus. Eclipses it. That's right. Eclipse it. I reckon that's a better one. Eclipse it. I reckon that's a better punchline. I'm going for the one it said written down. Eclipses it. So there you go. Right. Yeah, I'm happy with that, man. Right, let's crack on with things. Let's go through the rundown and tell everybody and yourself, Wills, what we're going to be doing on today's podcast. Here we go. Today on the pod, we'll take a quick look at the weekend's Premier League results. Don't worry, though, we'll be a bit quicker than we were last week with Liam Denwood. Although people did enjoy it last week, I felt it dragged on just a little bit. After that, we'll be talking about the 3-0 defeat against Northampton Town. So we'll be getting into the serious nature of things, the nooks and crannies of Keith Millen's first game in charge at Carlisle United. And then we'll be, hopefully, taking a bit more of a dreamy, positive approach as the FA Cup campaign begins for Carlisle United. And we go head-to-head with the mighty Horsham Town. And we'll be having a look at Horsham, where they're from, what kind of league they're in, and how they've made it this far in the competition. All of that to look forward to, mate. But first, what we'll do is we'll have a quick blast through of this weekend's Premier League results. There's no Friday night fixture this weekend, so we had a full or blustered Saturday fixture list. Man United beat Tottenham by 3-0. We'll have a little extra depth look at that in a minute. Southampton beat Watford by 1-0. Newcastle lost to Chelsea by 3-0. Crystal Palace beat Manchester City in what might have been the shocking result of the day. But Liverpool also dropped 2 goals against Brighton to draw 2-2 at Anfield. Burnley won 3-1 against Brentford. Arsenal did quite convincingly beat Leicester 2-0, and that was your Saturday results. On Sunday, West Ham beat Aston Villa by 4-1, and Leeds managed to beat Norwich to sort of stop their bad run of form for Leeds, but pile on the pressure for Norwich City. And mate, that's the first sort of team I want to have a look at this weekend as we do our Premier League roundup is Norwich City, because it's a little bit closer to home for Carlisle fans, as we've more recently played Norwich City and Leeds. So we've got a little bit more of a tie to those two kind of clubs. We've got a good record against Norwich over the years and a half-decent record against Leeds. But the way Norwich are going at the moment, mate, the points they've scored, the games they've played, they're on track to be the lowest points-earning team in Premier League history. Do you think that's the way it's going to go for them?
It was Derby, wasn't it? Was it Derby who set the record?
I think it was Sunderland. Was it Sunderland? The
Sunderland.
last time Sunderland won the Premier League?
Did Sunderland maybe break Derby's record? I remember Derby being involved in it. Was it 9 points?
Yeah. I think it was 11 points by one of them, and now it's 9 points. I'm pretty sure.
9 points. Yeah. And how many points do Norwich have at the moment?
2.
I mean, it's still going some to get less than 9 points, you know.
But we're at the point where we played 10 games now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You know, if you're walking through it and doing maths, you're going to predict that they get like 8 points by the end of the season maximum.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I say, no matter how bad you are, it's going some to get fewer than 10 points across the course of a season. They've got like 8 points to get to avoid being the lowest ever, or joint lowest ever at least, Premier League point scorers. You know what I mean? Like if they come up against a poor team of one of the teams around them, some of them, like Newcastle and Burnley, could be pretty bad. They could get a win, and then suddenly they only need 5 points. So, yeah, I mean, they certainly look capable of getting less than 10 points. It's still going some to actually get that few points in a season, though.
Yeah, I get it, I do, but I don't see them getting any better after January. I feel like Newcastle might just come in there, take the more talented player, like your Aarons and your Campbells, and then you really don't have anything left.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, but luck alone will get you a few points, no matter how bad you are. So there's always that.
Maybe the looks ran out. We'll see. But they are a yo-yo team, Norwich. They're always up, they're always down, and it's not really a surprise. It's not really a surprise to see them around the area. What it is, though, is a surprise to see Crystal Palace doing quite well. Well, I say quite well. The 13th in the Premier League, and a lot of people and pundits were predicting that they were really going to struggle this year under Patrick Vieira's tutelage, and they're not. They're doing really well. They're flying, and they managed to beat Man City at the Etihad by 2-0. And he kept the composure really well. And what I like about Crystal Palace is that they do look quite mature on the pitch. They've got quite level-headed players on the pitch. The guys look like they've had their backs up against the wall a lot of their careers. They've always been in a dogfight. They've always been looked at like relegation contenders. And they've matured under that pressure, and they look quite comfortable with it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all been about being hard to beat with them. Just look at their record. They've only got 2 wins. I mean, they're mid-table, about like halfway between European football and relegation places. But they're kind of like, they look, quite hard to beat. 6 draws, only 2 defeats, but only 2 wins. So they've got the same number of wins as Leeds, who are in 17th, only a couple of points behind them. They've got the same number of defeats as the likes of Manchester City and West Ham. Manchester City, West Ham, and Brighton have all got just 2 defeats. So they've got the most number of draws in the league. So I think it's all about them being hard to beat. They drew 4 in a row before this win, and one of them was against Arsenal, where they could have won that. It was a very late equaliser by Arsenal.
Yeah, I just they're a good-looking team at the moment. You don't think they're really going to be anywhere down there at the bottom come the end of the season. And another team that's doing possibly better than a lot of people would have thought that they would have done at the start of the season is West Ham United, who are still in fourth place after another very convincing victory, but this time over a good Aston Villa team. They won 4-1. It was. I thought it was predictable. West Ham look good, and Aston Villa look a little bit shaky at the moment after losing Grealish. They can't put together a consistent run of form, but I like the way that West Ham play at the moment under Moyes, and you wouldn't really thought you were ever going to say that about a team that's managed by David Moyes, but. Looking back on reflection, that Everton team wasn't the worst team to watch. They had their exciting moments where they managed to climb up to fourth in the Premier League at some point. And the last game we'll have a little cheeky look at, mate, is Man United winning by 3-0 at Tottenham Hotspur. And today, obviously, Tottenham Hotspur have sacked their manager as pretty much a direct result of that. I mean,
lose to Man U, and that's going to be the final nail in your coffin.
It's a bit harsh.
It's just funny that they've been beaten by Man U, and that's kind of what's got him the sack. It's almost like, given all the stick that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's getting a Man U, and kind of like the stuff about them having a disappointing season. It's always quite funny to kind of like make it look like it can't be losing to Man U. There's
there's a big gulf in class between those owners. A big change in cultures between the ownerships of those two clubs, definitely. Yeah. And apparently Conte is already been offered an 18-month contract to go to Tottenham. So that's quite an interesting move there. Conte was obviously rumoured around the Newcastle United job, but I'm pretty sure he said not this time, but maybe in the future, because there hasn't really been a lot of Conte talk around the Newcastle United job. And that seems like a job that Conte could take. I wouldn't be so surprised by that. What I will say about the way that Tottenham are playing at the moment, it is interesting after watching that Amazon documentary where Jose is at Tottenham Hotspur and the way that he's telling them to be C words and play like C words and, be horrible, be ruthless, be aggressive in matches. And the way that Tottenham are playing this season, they just don't look like that. They don't look like someone's reminding them that they need to be nasty, because they just don't look nasty on the pitch anymore. They don't look like they've got that killer instinct. And that's what can give some players, not every player, but that's what can give some players the extra couple of yards, the extra bit of drive to get to the ball first. And it just doesn't seem like that. It was happening under Nuno, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, Nuno's a bit of a nice guy, isn't he, I think? Yeah. So, I mean, maybe it is that, Mourinho has signed players because they react better to being encouraged to be nasty. And Nuno's come in and said, no, don't be nasty. Maybe that's, maybe it's upset the balance. I don't know how many changes are made to the squad over the summer, whether it's still mostly Mourinho's team, but
I can't remember any massive marquee names coming into Tottenham over the summer. But
they're currently 8th in the table. That's not bad for Tottenham. Should be celebrating that.
Well,
how's Tottenham?
I think it depends on what kind of Tottenham fan you're speaking to.
I know. I don't think it's kind of like. I don't know how much I don't know if their spending is really kind of like enough that they kind of. But I mean, like in terms of kind of bigness, I don't know. The Tottenham really needs. I don't know, should they be expecting to be top 4 every season?
Oh, if they weren't, then why would they keep hold of Harry Kane, for fuck's sake? Like, what was the point in doing that? They should have just got rid of him the second he said he wanted to leave. If they don't want to be in the top 4, why the hell did they keep Harry Kane? They should have just sold him off. Like, they would have been 8th without Harry Kane. You don't need Harry Kane to finish 8th for that Tottenham side. You can have 120 mil in your bank account. Well, evidently, you are having him in your team and finishing 8th at the moment. Yeah, you're quite right. But it's just, it's madness, mate. It's absolute madness. And Tottenham, Daniel Levy, he's do you know who he reminds me of? King Jong-un. He's just, I'm going to run this club the way I'm going to run this club, and that's the way it's going to be, and it's my dictatorship, and it might not be the way you run your football club, or the way that you would run any business for that matter. But that's the way I'm doing this, and I'm not going to be negotiated to, and I'm not going to be this, and I'm not going to be that. Bit like a child, really, who's never been told what he can and can't have. But there we go. We'll have a look at the way that those results affected the Premier League table this weekend, just before we move on to talk about what everyone's here for, really, Carlisle United content. So the Premier League table stands with Chelsea still at the top of it, with Liverpool still in second place, and Man City and West Ham in third and fourth, respectively. The other top 8 positions being ran down as Man United, Arsenal, Brighton and Tottenham. The relegation zone, as we've already mentioned, is occupied by bottom of the table Norwich on 2 points, Newcastle on 4. But Burnley, who won this week, has managed to put a bit more of a gap between themselves and the bottom 2 by getting themselves onto 7 points. And so Leeds also won, though, so the gap's just as big between themselves and the bottom of the relegation zone. So that's enough Premier League talk. We'll move on to talk about Carlisle United's 3-0 defeat at the hands of Northampton Town. It was an early kickoff. That caused a bit of a kickoff, a bit of a stir, because a lot of people didn't really know that. So they were like, oh, F, I have to set off a bit earlier. And so there was a lot of people scrambling to get out the door that morning, get themselves down to the game. But a great effort from Carlisle United fans, 280 Carlisle United fans making the long journey down to Northampton. And as we normally do, we'll start off by giving you the Carlisle United starting lineup for the game against Northampton Town. In goal, we had Howard, with Mella returning to the squad at right back, Whelan, McDonald and Armour at the back, with Mellish and Guy sitting in front of them, Gibson, Clough and Dickinson in a tiered midfield system, with Alessandra playing up front on his own. Now, that's not the first time Alessandra's played up front on his own recently. He's done it under Skelton as well, and I imagine that was probably heavily advised by Skelton. In fact, a lot of this team apparently was heavily advised by Skelton. Looking at it, mate, the one thing that really stands out for me is the lack of Riley. Where the hell did Riley go? He's probably the best player right now on form in a Carlisle United shirt, and he wasn't in the starting lineup. What was going through your head when you heard about the Carlisle starting lineup missing Riley?
Yeah, it seems to have been kind of like the fall guy for most of the season, the guy that, like if we drop from a midfield 3 to a midfield 2, it's always Riley that misses out. And he's treated as, although he has played a bit of right back this season, he's still kind of like not seen, in any way as being the first choice right back. So Mella was fit, so Mella started. So I guess, that's going to be something for Keith Millen to look at is, can he change the system? Say like, I can kind of like see that if he's already decided that it's too late to change the system, so we're going to play with that 3 of Clough, Dickinson and Gibson again. We're going to play kind of a back 4. I can kind of like see how in that system it's difficult to fit Riley in. So like that'll. If you're gonna
play, sorry, mate, but if you're gonna play Alessandro up front on his own, I would have to say when pushed that Clough is a better option to play up front on his own than Alessandro is. And then if you're going to be filling in that gap in the middle of the midfield, that attacking role, you put Riley there. That's where you put him there, and you wouldn't have Alessandro in the team, or at least that's the way I would have done it. If I was playing that formation.
Might be a conclusion that he comes to. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's maybe just kind of come in and said that. Are you basing? So you say that like it's a Skelton team. Are you basing that just off Keith Millen saying that after 2 days he doesn't want to come in and kind of give them a whole new thing, or are people saying that no, actually Skelton picked that team? Because I'm going off the
interview. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Skelton picked the team. I think it's just that was how we, apart from Mella coming back, that's how we kind of like set up in the last game. And therefore, Keith Millen has not made any changes to that. I think, obviously, if Skelton had come along and said, oh, no, I think we should do this. If Skelton had wanted to make changes and advised him to make changes, I think Keith Millen would have said, no, we're going to stick with what we did last week because I need to look at them before I make changes. So...
Well, I mean, by the time the end whistle went, I probably would have said now, with retrospect on my side, that I would have started Riley instead of Guy.
Yeah.
But we'll go on to talking a little bit about what's gone on in the centre of Carlisle's midfield and maybe how the new contract might have affected things on the pitch a little bit. But yeah, we'll go through sort of like the throes of the game. There's a couple of chances for Carlisle earlier on. There's one for Alessandra that you've noted down, mate. What do you want to? What do you have to say about the chance that Alessandra
had? Looks like he should have done better with it. I mean, he's not the tallest, and if we'd had a taller person in there, then he might have kind of been able to head that down. Maybe because I mean, Alessandra's quite decent in the air for someone of his height. He does kind of tend to win things that you wouldn't think he would win, but if he just had that extra bit of height, or if he had someone in there with that extra bit of height, because he just gets under it, he just can't get up high enough to head the ball, down.
Yeah.
So,
what stood out for me on that attack, and Carlisle, I don't think I've said this yet, but Carlisle did start the game very well. But what stood out for me with that Alessandra header was the fact that it wasn't a very well defended moment for Northampton. There was a ball that came in from Armour first on the left-hand side, and then that found its way sort of through the box, wasn't dealt with very well. And then Mella crossed it from the right-hand side and then found Alessandra. What I will say about that phase of play is that you could see the difference between the quality of crosses that were coming from the left-hand side and the quality of crosses that were coming from the right-hand side of the game, because Mella's crosses are a lot more cultured than Armour's are at the moment. Armour's are sort of long and high and just sort of hospital balls that are going into the box. But when Mella's doing it, he's whipping it, he's putting the pace on it. And I'm just seeing that that's what stood out for me during that phase of play. And then it continued to stand out to me for the rest of the game. There was another moment in that opening exchange between Carlisle and Northampton, though. I think I sent you a still shot of it where McDonald.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what the still was supposed to be of.
So there's an extended highlight, and you can quite clearly see, maybe if you can have a look at that still now, that the ball is ricocheting off the Northampton defender's arm early on in the game, and the commentator makes not much of it, and nobody really appeals for it. And to be fair, it doesn't really feel like a big deal until you get to the Northampton penalty later on in the game, and we'll get there to that. But mate, that was a penalty, a stonewall penalty within the first sort of 15 minutes of the game, especially when you're looking at what the referee continued to do for the rest of the game and the penalty that he gave away later in the game.
Okay, I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I've not seen that highlight. I didn't know what the, but looks like
I mean, it was, in my opinion, mate, it was clearly a handball, and especially if you're going to give away that handball later on in the game when 2 goals have already gone in and it's going to be the 3rd goal, then it's just you've got obviously there wasn't a consistent standard of refereeing decisions in the game, and so it didn't get up my nose necessarily at that time. But when the penalty was given against Carlisle, it really did, because I don't know what Armour's supposed to do in that position, stop any kind of contact with the ball. But obviously their defender, the way that the ball has hit his hand in that moment is directly resulting the path of the ball and therefore affecting the way that the game is being played. So that's a penalty. But if it's a tiny little sort of like breeze off someone's fingers, that just sort of, and the ball's still going in the same direction it was going to go into anyway. I mean, you know what I'm saying, mate. I'm not happy with that exchange anyway.
Okay.
So obviously things went from going good for Carlisle to going bad for Carlisle in quite a quick turnaround. Carlisle were pressing high for most of the opening exchanges. They were defending high up the pitch, pressing the ball in heavy numbers. And there was a moment, unfortunately, where we did win the ball back high up the pitch, but then very quickly lost the ball. And what can sometimes happen in those moments is that you just got to get caught on the break. And
that's exactly what it was.
That's kind of what happened, mate. Yeah, they kind of got caught on the break around the halfway line. We won the ball back, then we lost it a little bit silly. And then obviously we had Mella went to close down his man, and then the ball was sort of passed infield. Mella left his man to close down the ball rather than staying with his man. And then obviously the ball went back into him. He crossed it, and there was nobody on Lewis whatsoever. He was wide open to score the goal against us. The only thing I can say about that is it was a bit unlucky the way that we lost the ball in the midfield. It was, I can understand why Mella would go and close down the ball instead of staying with his man, but that's an error as well. And the fact that nobody had picked up the run of Lewis is a little bit disappointing when you've got two midfielders that are sitting back in that position to do exactly that.
Yeah, so like I kind of watched it off the highlights, and my note just started. It looks like it must have been a counter-attack. Carlisle outnumbered, so you're saying it was. Mm-hmm. No sign of Armour, who I think is the one who might have. Well, he kind of appears on the frame like late on, but kind of when the cross gets put across, you've kind of got McDonald and then two. And then two men, and as you know, regarding Mella, I've put in my notes, that he's drawn over to try and close a gap. Whelan was not close enough to his man, so Mella is drawn over. But did he need to? Because at that time we're still outside the area. Whelan still has time to get across, and if a shot does come in, then it's a fairly, it's outside the area. You hope your keeper's going to save those. So I don't know. Does Mella maybe not have enough confidence in Whelan, or does he, or was it something that needed to be done? Am I wrong in saying that Whelan could have got across and shut the door? But yeah, I've just put both fullbacks appear at fault there, but because I thought it was a counter-attack, then I'm also thinking, well, if Carlisle were on the attack, were the fullbacks, have they bombed forwards, and are they really to blame for not being in position when suddenly the ball's going in the other direction? Because I mean, we get onto that with the later goal about like the positioning of players when we lose the ball. Suddenly we go from being on the attack to being on the defence. You've got full backs. If they're instructed to bomb forward and join the attack, it kind of will leave gaps if we counter attack, not necessarily the full back's fault. But it looked there that that Armour and Mella both looked somewhat culpable for the goal.
Yeah, and that was just for the first goal. The two centre-backs were exposed. Whelan and McDonald were exposed on a number of occasions throughout the game, which I'm sure we'll maybe make a few comments on as we go along. It's the first game that I've seen Whelan look quite that uncomfortable when the ball was coming towards him, quite that frightened maybe when the ball was coming towards him, or maybe undecisive when the ball was sort of coming towards him, not trapping it for the first touch, not clearing his lines, maybe in the moments where he was more comfortable doing it at earlier stages in the season, starting to second guess himself a little bit. So maybe he's actually trying to show that he's a better defender than McDonald is, and that's costing him because he's focusing too much on taking the lead of the defence. Maybe, I don't know. I would say Mella's the natural leader in that defence. And do you know what? We'll actually talk about who maybe are the natural leaders going forward for Carlisle United in just a little bit. But that goal came towards the end of the first half in the 41st minute of the game. So it didn't leave Carlisle with a lot of time to reply. As we went on to the second half, it looked like a bad reaction to whatever was said in the dressing room. Players were getting snappy. There was a lot of arms being thrown in the air. There was at least 2 occasions I noticed Armour. One occasion I noticed Guy doing it. And when your captain's doing it, you really don't want to see it. It's a lot of people giving it the old, what you doing there? You should be over here. And lots of voices, lots and lots of voices shouting at each other. Not one strong voice shining through, which is, what you think we really need right now is somebody who's going to stand up and put people in their position. But the way that Carlisle came out for the second half, it did not take long for Northampton Town to find another way through Carlisle United's defence. The second half, we looked half the team that we looked in the first half. You could see players taking digs out of each other, like I've just said. And I think it was Armour, was it, that passed the ball into Guy, who was in the our own half, passed it behind him, you'd have to say. And what would you say happened after that with Guy's touch? Or was it good pressing, maybe? Are we being too harsh on Guy? No, we're not, are we?
I think it was a bad, because I did put on my note as well that it was a little underhit, but there's still space around Guy. It's one of them ones where you say, he's passed it behind him a little bit. It takes away some of our forward impetus. It shouldn't be resulting in a Northampton attack, because the worst that a pass that's a bit poor, like Armour's, should do is take away some of our own attacking impetus. But he takes a bad touch, and then he tries to recover, and then takes another bad touch. Well, to take another bad touch, he just fails to get it, and then number 19 picks it up. I have further condemnation for Guy later on in this, but I don't know if you want to pick it up with what happens after Guy loses it here.
Obviously, after Guy loses it, there just seems to be a lot of space at the back, and MacDonald really doesn't stand up to close down his man, and it's a gift, isn't it? It's a gift. It's just a gift on a plate for the Northampton attackers. Howard left with not much of a chance there. He's not sure whether to rush his lines or to stand his ground. And mate, it's as a Carlisle fan, it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch, and you could see it from the moment that Armour underhit the pass. And I'm not going to blame it all on Armour, because Callum Guy does have a lot of blame on his plate for what happened.
I wouldn't blame
it
on Armour at all, because Guy should still have picked that up and brought it forwards.
It'd be harsh to lumber it on Armour, but also at the same time, he was having a bad game, and that contributed towards the bad game that Armour was having at the time. But fair enough. Most of the blame has to be led by Callum Guy. It was a bad touch. It was a very casual touch. It was not a lot of strength. And this is what I've been noticing more and more. Every time you watch the sort of highlight video or any video, in fact, of Carlisle playing, when Callum Guy shakes the hand of the opposition captain, he always looks half as skinny. Always looks half as skinny as the other captain. And in this league, it's physical. It's a physical league, and Callum Guy is a bit of a luxury player. He's a luxury item in this league, and a team that don't play good football don't need luxury items in the team. And
I don't think that's that relevant because he didn't play good football in this occasion. He kind of miscontrolled an easy control. So I don't think this is anything to do with physicality.
I think a bit of it. I think he shows himself not to have the strength and the challenge there, or the awareness as well, or to have the will to stay on the ball in that moment. Because he gave it up too easily. He gave it up way too easily.
Yeah, but he's not under a lot of pressure. It's only if he gets that ball and takes a decent touch, there's not any Northampton player who's kind of coming in to challenge him for it. He's got quite a bit of space. It's such a bad touch that he kind of he brings Northampton players into the game that weren't in the game initially. But that's just on on how poor his touch is. I mean, to be fair to him, he does kind of keep up with the Northampton player who he gives the ball away to, but he's got a couple of yards behind him because he's given the ball away that badly that he.
What do you do? What do you do? Do you take him down? What do you do?
Well, here's the thing. He does keep up with him and he prevents him from getting a shot in, but this is where other players come into it. So at this point, although Guy has made the mistake, he has tracked back with the Northampton player, and the Northampton player doesn't get a free run into the area to put a shot in. But what happens is other defenders have been drawn towards the Northampton player who's breaking. And so, I was watching McDonald and seeing if I can see on the highlights, does McDonald have a little look over his shoulder and see that there's two Northampton players running in? Mellor's not there, but, again, this is where I talk about, where you've made a mistake. A Callum Guy, under very little pressure, has given the ball away and suddenly Northampton have players on us. Mellor shouldn't have probably been in a position where he was looking to get back and defend at that point because we had the ball and we had the ball in space and we're going forward. Suddenly, things have changed. So I didn't see Mellor arrive, but maybe that's just because we were on the attack or we were building an attack and Mellor had gone to join it. But yeah, McDonald doesn't spot that there's two unmarked Northampton players coming in behind him. Mellor, Whelan and Armour at that point, and then Guy worst of all. So what happens is the player that the Guy loses the ball to feeds it across the goal to one of these two players that are coming in. Mm-hmm. Even there, and Guy just at that point just stops running and stands and watches. Armour and Whelan are also in the area. None of them think to get back and defend the line. A Guy just doesn't do anything at all. He's lost the ball. He's chased back. He's prevented the player from getting the shot away, and he passes it instead. And then it's almost like he thinks my job here is done.
Yeah,
But
McDonald doesn't pick up his man there either. Like when it goes over to him, he's not marking anyone. He's
spots him late. He's drawn towards he's drawn towards the ball. They all are after Guy's mistake, and that's another thing as well. It's kind of like you've got a Northampton player running through, and it's a bit of panic. Instead of thinking, okay, it's someone's job to get this. Mm-hmm. Jack Armour, Jack Armour or Callum Guy's chasing him back. Jack Armour, you go help him out. Me and Cordy Whelan, this is McDonald. McDonald and Cordy Whelan will kind of keep an eye on other players because turn around. Yeah, there's two other players coming in there. McDonald and Whelan should be like, okay, well, we'll go and deal with them. But it's kind of panic. Guys giving the ball away and everyone's like, shit, and just runs towards the player, the Northampton player who's breaking. McDonald doesn't look behind him. Mellor, I'm going to give Mellor the benefit of the doubt and say that he was in the wrong place because he thought we were on the attack. It's just kind of panic. It's just kind of everyone kind of thinking, being drawn towards the ball. This, and because at the end of the day, the player who picks up the ball from Guy, it looks at first like he's just going to run through and go and get a shot away, but he doesn't get a shot away. So, he's not the big danger here. The big danger is leading other players running in. And I don't think from looking at the highlights that McDonald looks behind him, and he should be. And, he should be doing that for leadership as well to Cordy Whelan. And I don't know. I mean, can we even kind of implicate Mark Howard in this? Because he's the one who's in a position where he should be able to see everything. Is he not shouting to McDonald, there's someone coming on you, there's someone behind you, can someone mark this guy?
That's worth pointing out. That's definitely worth pointing out there. The fact that Howard needs to have a voice and needs to be telling people where other attackers are. But that's true to be said for most of the players in that position there. Like, for example, Guy had a very good view of what was happening behind Whelan's back, you know? He was running in the same direction. He had the same view that the attacker had, pretty much. He was
I'm kind of angry at Callum. Yeah, I'm kind of angry at Callum Guy for this. Not for for giving up. It just looks like, I mean, like, even if he maybe couldn't have gotten to the goal line, at least try.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. All that would take is...
Like I've said about bringing him down and taking a yellow, even risking getting a red. But
He'd have got a red and it would have been a penalty if he'd taken him down in that situation. He shouldn't have done that, and he didn't. I mean, like I said, like, he actually did the first bit after giving the ball away, right, in that he was able to kind of like stay on the player who he'd given the ball away to. It's just him stopping. It's him giving the ball away initially is bad. It's him, and to an extent also Armin and Whelan stopping what they're doing once the pass has been made. It's to an extent Howard, if he saw things, could he have made something? And if McDonald not looking and seeing what's around him, just running towards the scene of the crime where the ball's been given away.
It's a very poor goal to concede.
Yeah.
A very poor goal to concede. And the third goal is a very poor penalty decision to concede. The referee giving a penalty against Armour. I didn't see any sort of contact that changed the flight of the ball, if there was contact at all. Armour was furious. He was pointing at his thigh. And obviously trying to show some kind of mark to the referee to be like, look, there's a ball mark on my thigh or something. It's a strange thing to say. But like, to a footballer, it's probably a normal thing to say. It's one of those occasions where then that made me angrier, like I've already said, about the penalty that we didn't get at the start of the game. Yeah. And that's an influential moment now in the game, because if we were given a penalty at the start of the game, we might have had a different game plan for the next 70 minutes of the game, and we might have been able to hang on to at least a point, or maybe have some momentum behind us and go for another goal, because that was the way that we seemed to be playing, like I said, with the high press, and it seemed to be doing quite well. Yeah. We seemed to have caught Northampton out of the blocks. They weren't ready straight away, and they probably thought they were going to get more possession in the early stages, and so we kind of just missed our opportunities when they came, unfortunately, and we didn't get any better throughout the rest of the match. We got worse, and you can't do that if you're not scoring goals. If you don't have a lead to defend, you can't start tailoring off. You need to keep going. You need to keep pushing. And so after the second goal went in, Carlisle made the substitution of putting Impala on, which was nice to see. I haven't seen him in a while. So we had Abrahams and Impala playing up front. Abrahams was a first half substitution. I think Dickinson took a knock in the first half, so there was a bit of a formation.
I think he went off quite early,
it was around the 25th minute.
Listening to the thing, there was a collision between him and a Northampton player, and both those players eventually came off in the first half. So hopefully not just a bit of an impact injury, not a muscle one.
Yeah, hopefully. But it did force Carlisle to sort of change their game plan. So when Impala came on, it did look a lot more 4-4-2-y than the opening exchanges looked. And to be fair, it looked to have given Carlisle a little bit more of a toehold in the game. Northampton seemed to have slowed down their momentum for a bit, but it wasn't long until there was a Northampton goal through that penalty. And 3-0 Northampton. Carlisle looked like they just sort of ran out at that moment, and they were just sort of like damage limitation control after that, unfortunately. There's a few things that stood out from the game for me, mate, and I've already mentioned one of them. It's the fact that Jack Armour seems to be getting worse with every week that passes by. His delivery of the ball into the box does not look good, or at least as good as what it was looking last season. those sort of like long, lofty, flighty balls. There's no technique to them. There's no class to them. There's no pace to them. They're not the sort of balls that a short attacker is going to be able to get on the end of. You need to be whipping them in at feet. Below head height, you need to be whipping them in with a bit more venom, trying to get your toe pokes in and around the 6-yard box. And it's just not the sort of delivery that you need. You'd be tempted to put I would be tempted to put Charters or Bell, one of the young lads back there at left back for the game against Horsham, and give them a good run at left back and see if they can show a little bit of class. Because I reckon Armour needs a bit of a rest, or at least he needs a bit of a kick in the arse, because he had Anderton last year and he would be swapped in and out of the team last year. This year, I think he's had 2 rests, both of them for Dickinson, and I don't think anyone thinks Dickinson's a natural left back. Nobody thinks that he's ever going to rival him for his position, and also Dickinson is the best left-sided midfielder in the team, so he's not going to be constantly playing left back, because you need him playing further up the pitch. So there needs to be things getting tried. There needs to be things swapping around. There needs to be personnel leaving. There needs to be new personnel coming in very soon. In my opinion, mate, there just needs to be a shift of atmosphere in the changing room, and a quick way of doing that is by shifting some personnel around. And I'd start by just getting rid of my loan players and maybe loading some new ones in. I just to give it a different feel, mate. I just like Young isn't getting utilised. I imagine Villa aren't very happy that he's not getting much experience, so they'll be keen to get him somewhere that he is going to get some experience. And the same for Jensen. I think Liam Denman told us that last week Jensen was playing for the Burnley under-23s. It's a bit of an emergency situation, but that's the way that the cookie seems to be crumbling at the moment. And new manager needs new personnel, and it feels like what we were thinking at the start of the season was maybe our strongest position, the centre of the park, because we had Mellish, Guy and Riley in those centre midfield positions. Maybe we've got 3 players that actually aren't good enough, because when you think about it, last year we had Dean Furman that had to come in and help that midfield.
Callum Guy's kind of been, his performances have notably kind of dropped off this season. And because he's the captain as well, and because he's seen as the senior player in that midfield, although he is still fairly young himself, then I don't know if that kind of affects the performances of those around him as well. If he's having a bad game and, giving the ball away, or just kind of standing and watching as goals go in, if players, especially like the young players, are thinking like, that's my captain. That's the guy who is supposed to be lifting everyone around him, and it just doesn't look like his heart's in it.
Yeah, it has been disappointing. And do you know when my first alarm bell started going is when Chris Beach said that I don't want just one captain. I want a full team of 11 captains. I just disagree with that philosophy from the get-go. Yeah. You need to back somebody. You need to back one person, back them and give them the confidence and show them that they're representing this football team and you as a manager. And when you go out into the press and you start telling the press that you're not really bothered who captain is, then why should your captain care who the captain is? And it's just, it's bred the wrong kind of attitude on the pitch. And more and more often we're seeing less and less from Callum Guy, because he's not even taking as many free kicks and corners as he used to be taking. Other people are starting to take free set pieces now. Clough setting up free kicks and stuff now as well. So it's becoming less and less of a vital player for the team to be in that starting 11. And I would say the way that we're playing right now, we need a defensive midfield player who's like a pit bull, who's going to win that ball back and get us on the front step again. And that's not Callum Guy. Callum Guy is not a tackler. He's a ball playing midfielder, and so someone else has to give him the ball because he's not going to get it back himself. He's not that kind of challenger. And like I've said, physically, when you stand him up next to most of the other captains in this league, he looks skinny. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm a skinny, lanky lad myself, but like I'm not a professional footballer. And when your leader isn't the biggest, strongest person in this league, most of the leagues it might not matter as much, but in this league it matters to have someone physical as your leader, someone who's literally the hardest person in the changing room, kind of along those lines. Like, to be your leader in this league, that kind of thing matters. We saw it in my day with Kev Gray, that sort of the way he charged out and then he charged his way to back-to-back promotions. And it's got a lot to do with the leadership of that team. And from talking to people who were in that team across those 2 seasons, they've said exactly the same thing. And it's strong leadership that will get you to win games. And at the moment, I'm not seeing strong leadership from Callum Guy. And now I'm not even saying seeing good performances.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is where hopefully, touch wood, Keith Millen has good contacts and can get as a player that he's maybe worked with at some teams, the teams he's worked with, can he get as a player who was maybe sort of like, under Keith Millen at somewhere like Crystal Palace or Bristol City, and is now a bit older, a bit wiser, but also dropping down the leagues a bit, but has higher quality.
Do you not want one of his Swedish wonder kids? Do you not want one of his Swedish wonder kids? Do you not want him to drag over one of his teenagers from Sweden? Do you not fancy one of them? No. Do you not fancy Ryderson or Erikssons or David?
I know nothing about them.
Or Eversons or Iversons. Yeah, I know what you're saying though. Yeah, it would be nice to see him utilize that contact list of his and take one of those sort of like players if it matches up. The right kind of player to come in to this team and really make a good impact. And I feel like in the center of the pitch is one of the places we really need improvement. We need improvement in a lot of places. We need improvement out wide. We need improvement up front. We need improvement in the middle. We need improvement in the middle of the defense. And then we need strength in numbers on top of that as well. We need like other options at goalkeeper. We need other options at fullback. It's just on paper a squad that actually looked quite strong at the start of the season. All of a sudden, it just doesn't anymore. It looks like we need recruits all of a sudden. I'll tell you what we'll do, mate. We'll have a little look at what some of the listeners had to say this week. Chris Gibson had this to comment on the game. He says, not a great performance, but difficult to judge the new manager so soon. That's fair. Get the 2 cup games out of the way. Then by the Barrow game, we'll see what impact Keith Millen has had. We are obviously crying out for some additional players, but it's a long way until the transfer window opens, and we have to turn it around somehow before then. It's a mammoth task. Well summed up there by Chris, I reckon, mate. He's quite a cultured wordsmith, is old Chris Gibson these days.
Yeah, I mean, there might be 1 or 2 fans that are kind of like immediately jumping to criticize Keith Millen, either because the performance was poor in the game or because of things he said that they're like reading into. He was kind of like quite keen after the game to talk about that there were positives, and that's just manager speak. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're making the team complacent behind the scenes. But some fans don't like that. And if you get managers who come out after a defeat and say, "Well, we were good at this and we were good at this," some fans will kind of like take that quite negatively and maybe think that is he going behind is he going in the dressing room and telling the players, "You're all positives," but players are professionals and they should be able to, after a game, sit down and go through the things they did well as the things they did badly, and not get complacent because they did 1 or 2 things well. And hopefully the actual post-match briefings or whatever they do after, when they return to training, are a bit more balanced like that. And he's not been in the club long enough to. He did say that he was just going to stick with the formation because to try and change it after 2 days would just make things worse. Just fair point.
It's interesting that you say that. Another comment from another guy called Mark Towns. I think this is the first time comment from Mark. So thanks a lot, Mark, for making a comment. Poor again. What can you say? Skelton's team selection was written all over it. Why didn't he go with Beach? There's a lot of people saying that, mate. I hope that Keith picks his own team this week. Then again, we are playing Horsham. That's about our level at the moment. So Mark obviously not happy, taking a few digs there. And I think unless it was Keith, we would have seen the back of Skelton. But because it's Keith, because Keith has this relationship with the board, I think he would have known coming into the job that Skelton was your number 2 when we weren't really wanting to pay him off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who his assistant was in Sweden, but like some managers will go around, the more experienced managers will go around with an assistant. Like when we brought Keith Curlin and Colin West comes with him. We brought Sheridan in and Tommy Wright comes with him. The newer managers or the managers who maybe been not had many spells as a permanent manager, which Keith Millen has been known more as a caretaker in this country, generally don't have an assistant that goes along with them. And maybe that's kind of like something that David Holdsworth is looking at and saying that maybe they have kind of a negotiations with some managers that they maybe want, but then go that manager's like, but I want to bring my own backroom staff in with me. And the board are like, well, that's going to cost us more money. So they then kind of end up going with somebody who doesn't have a backroom staff that they take everywhere with them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was barking up, mate. That's kind of what everyone's thinking. Well, not everyone's thinking at the moment. Obviously, Mark's not thinking that because Mark's trying to figure out why Skelton didn't go. But that's our opinion on that, Mark. That's why Skelton didn't go with Beach, because once again the board want to save a bit of money, and also I doubt Skelton would have had any influence on Beach's squad selection, because Beach has got a quite strong personality, and I think Skelton was considered to be a coach, very much a coach.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Skelton, he didn't come in with Beach either. He was at the club already when Beach came in, and he was promoted to assistant manager because they hired Beach, same as we're talking about with Millen, someone who doesn't come with an assistant. And so they said, well, we'll provide you with an assistant. We're going to promote our... No, he was actually Stephen Presley's assistant, wasn't he, as well, Skelton? Yeah. He was. So it was under Presley that he was promoted. So... again, like Skelton, Radio Cumbria the other week, when we were still yet to appoint a manager, they were kind of talking up Skelton, and I didn't necessarily agree with everything that they said. They were almost saying that Skelton should be given a chance, maybe, or would be worth a chance as manager, and I didn't agree with that. The one thing they did say that I agreed with was that Skelton's been at the club for a while, and he's not attached to any of these managers that he has been assistant manager under. He came in as a coach, and I think he came in as an academy coach even. And he's been put into this position, and it's maybe it's a bit unfair on him to kind of like say that, you're part of the problem if Beach is the problem, or you're part of the problem with Presley's the problem. Yeah. He's basically been asked to do that job because it saves the club some money.
Yeah, I feel like he's a blank slate of a coach. I feel like he's got no prejudice. Whoever comes in, he'll work with in whatever way they want to work. He'll do the formations however they want to do it. He'll run training sessions designed by them. You know, I'm sure he's hired to be a coach, and he's an assistant manager. But yeah, he's hired to be a coach, not a tactician. I don't think anyone's taken his influence into the changing room in such a grandiose way.
Yeah.
To think that he should also get the boot with somebody like Chris Beach. So thanks very much for the comments there in the comment section. If anybody has anything else to add or wants to get involved in that debate, you just need to go onto Facebook and type in The Blue Army Podcast. It's right on there in the comment section, and you can get involved in the conversation with Mark and Chris if that's what you want to do. And obviously we'll give you our opinions as well if you ask for them. But there we go. Next weekend's opponent, mate, it's Horsham Town.
Yeah.
They are in the non-league Isthmian Premier Division. I mean, it's a bit of a contrast. The statements calling something non-league and then saying it's a Premier Division of some kind, but
they're all Premier Divisions down there.
Yeah, exactly.
They like to give them grandiose names.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's it. Our FA Cup dreams are going to start at Brunton Park and against a team that are many divisions below us and also not doing very well in that division, in fact. But to get here, Horsham had to go through the mighty Haywood Heath Town, the Goliath task of Kingstonian. I can't say that name, I'm sorry. The absolute giants of Eastbourne Borough and the Stone Cast. I've run out of words. Woking. Yeah. So a lot of teams and a lot of replays actually along the way, most of them being replays for Horsham. None of this really matters when it comes to Carlisle United's game against Horsham. What the most interesting thing about this is going to be is how many goals Sam Fishburn scores, because that's going to be the thing that gets him in the starting lineup in the league, is scoring goals. And I really do hope he gets himself a hat-trick. It's is at that standard of football he was playing with Lancaster. It's the sort of southern Essex area equivalent of that league. And yeah, there's no reason why he can't turn up at his hometown club. Well, not his hometown club, but at his parent club and just score some goals with some good players around him as well. And some players like Impala should probably be given a chance. I expect to see Riley put back in the team for that game and maybe given the chance to play a different position in the midfield. I expect a lot of people to be rested, Charters to play, Bell to play, and maybe even seeing some of those young lads that played in the FA Cup game against Tranmere to feature as well. Like what seems to be a bit of a goal machine, so it might be interesting to give Sam Fishburn the confidence of playing alongside a striker that he's played with for over a year in that youth level and scored so many goals with.
But at the same time, I would say as well, you kind of want to, if you're looking to bring Sam Fishburn through and improve his experience, then maybe you want to kind of put him alongside a more senior player who, because if Sam Fishburn does, does really well and is knocking on the door, starting lineup, then he'll be playing alongside someone like Clough, Dickinson, Gibson, these sorts of players. So the kind of like, in terms of experience for the young players, those that we give experience, at the same time, sort of need to be playing alongside senior players in order to really get the benefit out of that experience. And then the other thing as well is, like, I think Keith Millen, I don't know what he's going to think about it, the Horsham game, because he might look on it as a chance for him to, to try what he thinks is going to be a strong lineup. Maybe save that for Morecambe, because it's good that we've got 2 cup games before our next league game, so he can, you know, I certainly expect the Morecambe game to be more like the starting lineup that he thinks is going to take us into the next, the next league game.
Oh, okay. I would have done it the other way around, but like, I just to give you a team a confidence booster, you know, kind of thing. I would have played a stronger squad against Horsham than I'm going to play against Morecambe, just because of where we are in that Johnson's paint, Papa John's kind of thing anyway, and sort of how many points we've got anyway. We're not looking like we're getting out of that little group anyway, so I would have just.
We're already out of it. We've already qualified, yeah.
We beat Everton under 23s, didn't we?
Yeah.
I was on holiday that week. I didn't really register.
Right. I mean, nobody really cares about progression in that trophy. But
no. Well, there we go then. Yeah,
it's a chance, and we know we're going to get another match in it after this, and maybe it's because Morecambe are going to be a lot better quality opponent than we'd get.
You'd imagine so.
Even though they're probably not going to put out their strongest squad, but I mean. If Keith Millen wants to get a look at senior players against senior players, then he does that against Morecambe, hopefully. Horsham, like anyone that we pick out of our squad, I imagine is probably going to be leaps and bounds ahead of Horsham in terms of quality, but it's more of a mental thing, these kind of things, because also, Horsham, you listed off the battles that they've already been through to get this far. They've been through a lot of replays, and that'll be in their mentality now, and they'll kind of be psychologically prepared for knockout football and for FA Cup football. And that's where teams like us, where we, in a bit of a bad spell and morale's a bit down, that's kind of where we come unstuck in these sorts of games where you get upsets. But quality-wise, even if we do put like most of our like young players out there who don't have much experience, quality-wise should still be too good for Horsham. And if we want to progress, which we do, we don't just want to use it as a chance to give players experience. Then also with the Horsham game, you're putting in players that might have a bit more of a positive attitude. I mean, some of our we've got some players who've just been in like the FA Youth Cup.
Yeah.
I don't know which of our.
It was a good game to watch. That it was on YouTube.
The Oldham game, yeah. Don't know whether Fishburne would have been involved in that or whether he's seen.
I think he scored 2.
So like these youth team.
He missed the penalty as well, though.
Wow, that can.
He missed 2. Well, he missed 2 penalties. He missed one in the shootout and he missed one in the game.
That can happen. But yeah, I mean, because of the FA Youth Cup, some of these youth team players have got some more of the winning mentality from knockout competitions. Yeah. It was an entertaining game, to be honest. I think it was Carlisle Oldham in the FA Youth Cup. It was a free game. It was on YouTube, and I enjoyed it. Carlisle lost on penalties, unfortunately. So unlucky to the young Blues there, but all in all, a very entertaining game. Much more entertaining than Carlisle's game against Oldham in the league. Yeah. But yeah, mate, you know what? We've had a good talk, I reckon, and I reckon that's enough for us this week, unless you've got anything else you'd like to mention. No, don't think so. We covered everything pretty much on my match report. Not that we want to go back to that. Guess next league game now is against Marra. That's it, the Cumbrian derby, and I'm going to be there, mate. I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to be in the Warwick? We'll see. I might have something up my sleeve. You'll have to keep an eye on the social medias because I might have something off my sleeve. If that doesn't happen, I'll see you in the Warwick without a doubt. Look, it's got so many contacts now. David Holsworth's been in touch. well, apparently, Mr. James Phillips has been denied entry to Brunton Park recently. I thought that was probably it. Nothing to do with me, I might add. No one's been in contact with me yet.
but I don't expect them to either.
I mean, were you wanting to cover the situation with Phillips, or?
I mean, I wanted to kind of distance myself from it because I think people think I've got a bit of a vendetta against him, and I don't. I'd love his job. I'd love his job, but like, I don't have a vendetta against him. But no, if you want to kind of say what's gone on at all, like, but I don't,
because I was kind of thinking that from what I hear, because I say I'm talking now, assuming that this bit will get cut out. Wouldn't want that to happen to you.
Well, I've got nothing to do with the club, so like if they've never backed
James Phillips has nothing to do with the club.
Oh, it's on radio. Oh, that makes it extra drama, doesn't it? So technically, he's employed by Radio BBC Cumbria, and the club denied him access to the game.
Join the stands with I mean, I think you can maybe help him get set up with sound because you got
absolutely.
But the reasons why Phillips wasn't on the commentary, maybe because don't know what the crack is with that, but it was reportedly just because Phillips said that and that was the reason why they couldn't find a buyer, was because the rumours are that is the thing that got him banned from the press box. So it doesn't look good on the boards.
I think I've said my two-piece on the board a few times. So
take your time when editing that, because I'd say I wouldn't want you to kind of turn up like if you've got like if you've got your contact, and I know what you're implying, that you might be watching the game from. I wouldn't want that to get taken away from you because you've criticised the board in your podcast.
Well, this is why we use aliases like Skelly. This is why we use things like aliases, mate. Yeah, this is how we get through.
But you use your real name as well, and
yeah, you're true. You're right. I think we fly under the radar, though. To be honest, I think we're flying under the radar still when it comes to that kind of thing. And if anything, mate, what great content it would have given me if they didn't let me in. What great content I'd get out of that.
Oh no, proceed
on Instagram live straight away. Yeah, absolutely.
Proceed with caution.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Obviously, like, have a dig at the board, but I mean, certainly in the issue of kind of like whether James Phillips has been denied access to Brunton Park and why, that's potentially kind of like a dicey area to go into.
Yeah. Well, we haven't necessarily given an opinion on that. We've just kind of said
we kind of have.
Listen back. We'll see what gets left in. And do you know what? On those bombshells, we'll let you all go. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Blue Army podcast. This has been episode 31. We've been joined by Wills. Thank you very much for joining us, Wills. Yes, hello. It's not time to say hello now. It's time to say goodbye, Wills. It's goodbye time now. It's goodbye time. Say goodbye, Wills.
Goodbye.
And we'll be seeing you all again next week. Well, if Wills can join us, he'll be seeing you all again next week.
Yeah.
But,
I'll be a cup game.
There we go. We'll get a full in-depth analysis from Wills on the FA Cup game. And then, of course, we'll be giving you the teasers all around the Cumbrian derby. And maybe I'll be abusing my contact list again to get some extra insight from the Barrow end. So, I just leave that where it lies, because I've been pinched before when it comes to making promises about people appearing and then unfortunate things happening last minute, which is all fine. Nobody can help it. But yeah, I won't be getting pinched again when it comes to confirming guests ahead of time. But yeah, Wills, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all very much for listening. This has been the Blue Army Podcast, episode 41. And there's nothing left to do but say bye for now.